There's been a shooting at a border crossing between the occupied West Bank and Jordan. The Allenby crossing is controlled by Israeli forces. The Israeli army says at least 3 people were killed and that they were Israeli nationals. The shooting happened in a commercial cargo area. The army says the gunman arrived from Jordan in a truck and opened fire at border guards. Israeli forces killed the attacker, who they've identified as a Jordanian national, and an investigation is ongoing. Israel has closed all land border crossings with Jordan. Allenby is the only crossing through which Jordan has been sending aid to Gaza. Well, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu commented on the attack at the beginning of his cabinet meeting.
It is a difficult day. A vile terrorist cold-bloodedly murdered 3 of our citizens. On behalf of the government and myself, I send condolences to the families of the victims. We are besieged by a murderous ideology led by Iran's axis of evil. In recent days, vile terrorists have murdered 6 of our hostages in cold blood and 3 Israeli police officers. The murderers do not distinguish between us. They want to kill all of us to the last one, right and left, secular and religious, Jews and non-Jews.
Let's bring in Hamdah Salhut. She's joining us live from the Jordanian side of the border. So Hamdah, talk us through what it looks like now after that attack and also what the Jordanian authorities are saying about it.
Well, as you can see behind me, it's completely deserted as most of the travelers had been forced to turn back and go into Jordan. We spoke to many of those Palestinians who say they're now stranded and unable to return to their homes in the occupied West Bank. Jordanian authorities have said they're opening an investigation into the matter, but still there have been no findings for that initial probe just yet. The border on both sides, both the Jordanian and the Israeli side, is closed, and it's still unclear when it's going to be opened. Shortly after the attack, Israel had closed the other 2 land crossings that it has with Jordan, one in the north and one in the south. We are getting word that the one in the north is slowly opening up, but at a much slower rate, only allowing in 10 passengers at a time.
And Hamdah, can you give us an idea of just how much security people, trucks have to go through to get from Jordan to the Israeli side?
Well, look, there is quite a level of security. The trucks pass through this road behind me, and then they go to an area to be scanned and for their papers to be checked. Then they are sent over to the Israeli side, where there is a thorough security check. All of the papers are scanned. Whatever is inside the truck is also looked at. But the initial scan here on the Jordanian side looks for anything out of the ordinary that would be explosive. This is a scanner that the truck goes through, and it looks for any types of explosives, weaponry, or even human beings that perhaps are in the truck. So after the Jordanian side of the security, they are cleared after a call from the Jordanians that they have X amount of trucks with whatever kind of goods are inside them to go to the Israeli side to a separate part. But remember that all cars, all trucks are sent through these security scanners on both sides in order to see what's inside. After they make their way through the Jordanian crossing, they then go onto the Israeli side, and that is where this shooting occurred earlier today.
Hamdah, can you give us an idea of the importance of these crossings, not just to the people who use them, but also to the massive trade between Jordan, Israel, and the West Bank?
Well, let's begin with Palestinians. This is their only entry and exit point out of the occupied West Bank. There is no airport. There is no other way for Palestinians to leave their homes. So the ones we spoke to today said that they are now unsure of when they're ever going to be able to go back. It could be a day. It could be perhaps a week. It's still unclear when it's going to open at all. When it comes to trade, there are several thousand trucks that go through this border crossing with goods that are making their their way into Israel. So it's quite a significant border crossing. This one here behind me, on an average day, can see up to 2,500 passengers going to and from, and they are mostly Palestinians making their way in and out of the occupied West Bank. If you are a Palestinian who lives in the West Bank, you are traveling through this border crossing behind me in order to make your way to Amman, which is around 60 kilometers from where we're standing, to travel from the airport there. There is no other means of travel for Palestinians in the occupied West Bank.
Hamdah, thank you very much for that. For now, that is Hamdah Salhut with the latest, joining us live from the King Hussein Bridge in Jordan. And Nida Ibrahim has more from the other side of the border in the occupied West Bank.
This is a highly militarized, secured area, and then an attacker managed to do that. Now, again, we are talking about an attacker that came from the Jordanian side and not from the Palestinian side. That's why we've seen the Israeli forces easing restrictions on the checkpoints they've created around Jericho, the main city where most passenger travelers come from. But indeed, it's still a tense situation where we're seeing a lot of trucks are stationed here, probably just waiting for the border crossing to open. Again, this crossing is also the only crossing that allows aid to get to the besieged Gaza Strip from Jordan. Also, exports, Palestinian exports, have to pass by this checkpoint to get outside to go to Jordan. So again, we are talking about a major security breach, an attack that happens in a very sensitive area when it comes to the Israeli forces.
Alon Pinkas is a former Israeli diplomat who served as foreign policy advisor to Prime Minister Ehud Barak, and he's joining us live from Tel Aviv. It's always good to have you with us on Al Jazeera, Mr. Pinkas. Thank you for your time. Firstly, can you tell us about the level of security cooperation between Israel and Jordan and how they'll be working together on this attack?
Well, hello, Elizabeth. Always good to be with you in Al Jazeera. Since the peace agreement between Israel and Jordan in 1994, under then King Hussein, security cooperation was probably expanded more than any other aspect or facet of the relationship. And it remains extraordinarily strong between the two countries' respective security and intelligence branches, between the two countries' foreign intelligence branches, and tactically along the pretty long border between the Hashemite kingdom of Jordan and the state of Israel. Actually, it's the West Bank, but nonetheless, Israel retains security control. So that cooperation has been steadfast, has been solid, has been dependable. And there have been very few and far apart attacks coming from infiltrators or perpetrators from the Jordanian side. All that being established, Elizabeth, there is something that needs to be said, and that is that relations in the last few years between Israel and Jordan that have not affected security cooperation to the best of my understanding, but relations have been increasingly strained. Because of Mr. Netanyahu's policies, because of his reluctance to engage in a political process, what we used to call a peace process with the Palestinians, and certainly, Elizabeth, in the last year since the war in Gaza. So while I am sure that the Jordanian intelligence organs will cooperate fully with Israel, this should not come as a surprise.
But were you surprised, Mr. Pinkas, given just how rare such an attack is?
No, I don't know exactly if the perpetrator of this attack that killed 3 Israeli security guards, I don't know if he's what you call an East Banker, a Jordanian or a Palestinian, or some kind of a mix of both, which is 60%, which constitutes 60% of the population of Jordan. Palestinians who fled or were evicted from the West Bank throughout the years and found refuge in Jordan. So I don't know who he is. And it is rare. But given what's happened in the last year since the Hamas attack on October 7th, it's not surprising. What is surprising, and I know it's a slightly, difficult, even tragic thing to say, what is surprising, happily, is that it's the first such incident in the last 11 months. I hope that this does not portend other attacks. Yes, I'm sorry.
And just with what you're saying, how much would you say Israel's operations in the West Bank and Gaza are undermining its own security?
Well, that deserves an hour-long show between you and I. In the long run, it does undermine Israel's security. It undermines it tactically, as was the case in Gaza. It undermines it in the West Bank, which is where it is being expanded, broadened, and escalated currently. But there's also an outer envelope. Hezbollah in Lebanon and the Houthis in southwestern Yemen, and relations with the entire Arab world that have been basically frozen, and the reluctance on Israel's part to entertain any post-war Gaza frameworks that include a process with the Palestinians, that include and mandate, in fact, and stipulate a political process with the Palestinians in the West Bank. All of that undermines Israel's security. There's no question about it. I mean, if you look at it since 1967, since the seventh day of the Six-Day War, if you will, I don't know that Israel's security has been enhanced in any way, which or form, as a result of occupying / administering / being in charge of the West Bank. Not at all.
Mr. Pinkas, it has been great to get your insights on this. We really appreciate it. That is Alon Pinkas, live in Tel Aviv. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.